everyone to another episode of Conscious Couture. And today I'm very happy to be speaking with someone who runs a wonderful sustainable brand all the way in Kenya. She's Ria from the brand LilaBare, and LilaBare has been on the top of my favorite brands list since the time I decided to start and officially launch this magazine. So today I'm very happy that the story that inspired me so much is I'm able to convey it to so many of you. If you're new here, I would like to tell you that Conscious Couture is a podcast series where we speak with the owners and the designers of the sustainable fashion brands to know what makes their brands truly sustainable. This is actually an extension of our online magazine called Sustainaverse, where we highlight the brands that are striving to be sustainable in their own ways. And we also talk about the different aspects of sustainability in fashion that affects each one of us in our everyday lives. So I'm very happy to be welcoming Ria from LilaBare today. Ria, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's good to chat.
Definitely. Thank you, Ria. And it reminds me today that movie Devil Wears Prada, where Stanley Tucci says that fashion is bigger than art because you live your life in it. And when
That
I
is
yeah, and when I look at your brand, you put sustainability, yes, in your products in all aspects of your process, but you also bring the beauty in it. The thing that we love about fashion is that it makes us feel good. So I would like to know right from the beginning if you could tell us a little bit about your brand and what makes it sustainable.
Yeah, I love that you said feel good. And that's actually part of the name Lila Bear. It's the bear part. So, bear like bear skin. Everything is designed to feel good on the bear skin. It's made of only natural materials, which actually allow your body to function better as well. And the sustainability part of the brand, it's such a big question. I think sustainability as a label at this point in fashion is a very broad and vague term. But to me, and my philosophy with Lila Bear is to consider the impact of every living entity that's contributing to this garment, whether it's the farmer who's growing, whether it's the crop itself, whether it's the dyes, whether it's the artisans who weave, tailors, even the end customer should feel the impact, the positive impact on themselves, on their wardrobes, because it lasts so much longer than your average mass-produced fast fashion brand or whatever it is, other alternatives. So I think that it's a very holistic kind of approach that I take when it comes to the making of fashion, considering both the makers and the wearers, and all the resources in between. It's a complicated and complex process in a way, but it's the way that we should be making clothes, in my opinion.
That is very beautiful to know, to think, like you said, it's a very holistic process. Sustainability has become a very abused word, and because it is very vast, there's a lot of things that comes under its umbrella. And I'm very happy the way you look at it and the way you implement the principles of sustainability in your fashion brand. And when we were speaking for the first time, I remember that I come from a space engineering background, and I was telling you about the problems that we have in space. And what we fail to, most of us fail to understand because of lack of communication is that if we are destroying our planet, we are destroying a part of space. And so, and especially what we have in space right now is a lot of focus on human space flight. We have not just America and Europe, we now have India also sending human beings to space. And there is a big problem with fast fashion there as well. We can't keep making space suits or any kind of clothes with a lot of plastics, because if we live in a closed shell in a space station or maybe a closed habitat on Mars, We can't be shedding microplastics in a space where you can't vent things out. And on top of that, if you're talking about a long-term settlement in any other place in space, let's say on a planet like Mars, we can't be taking our disposable clothing habits there. There is no shopping mall there that we want and we suddenly discard our clothes because we have put it on Instagram once. So a lot of it is very related to the kind of lifestyle we want in space. In fact, I was very happy to know that the current Indian astronaut spacesuits were actually made by fashion designers in NIFT India. So a lot of these synergies between space and fashion are going to come together if humans have to live out of Earth. And thank you so much for, you also encouraged me to speak about this. So thanks a lot. Which is why, again, I think understanding sustainability somewhere requires a lot of studying the process, which is what brings me to my next question is that you have a very interesting background. So if you could tell us about how it was like for you to grow up in Kenya, how that shaped your identity and eventually your brand.
Yeah, I mean, I love this conversation about space and the the discoveries that have been made of microplastics from clothes that are created with fossil fuels, which goes against everything that I believe for and stand for and advocate for and practice in the creation of clothing. And I think that it really is this kind of perspective of looking at ourselves as a part of the natural system as opposed to separate or removed from it. This is what my upbringing in Kenya has given me. It is very easy to connect with nature here. There's a lot of it. I've lived in Mumbai for a few years, and I know that there are other big cities in the world too that not everybody has access to this way of life. And it's a very transformative kind of existence, I believe. It teaches you something every day just by being connected to nature, seeing it everywhere, seeing it being used in ways that are not in other places in the world. Um, and the way of life here as we were growing up, we were always a little bit behind on technology, for example. But I'm actually glad in today's day and age that I had a few more years of an analog existence to add to my childhood, because it was such an filled with enriching experiences that made me start to think even from a young age, how are clothes made? What are they made of? Everyone, most people in the world today are wearing clothes every day, right? Um, there's obviously, a big craft sector in Kenya as well. So the artisanal and the handmade is something that you see every day. To give you an example, the kikapu, it's a palm woven bag. So palm trees, which you have many of in India. So the leaves eventually dry and fall off. And what we do here in Kenya is we weave these bags, and they're used. I think I don't know a single household in Kenya that would not have that bag. It's just something you use to put your vegetables in when you go to the market. Is something that you use for heavy things, that when you need to transport water, or it can be for clothes, it can be for anything. It's just an all-purpose, and it's made of palm. We have really significant industries, I believe, or craft sectors. I wouldn't call them industries per se. I'd say more sort of cottage industry, you could say, but of woodwork, soapstone, brass. These are, and even from the nomadic pastoralist communities like the Maasai, bone. They use bone because cattle is their source of wealth, and that's what they keep, right? So we have a history and a heritage of that, these kinds of practices that just inform a, I don't know, a perspective that really shaped what I believe and how I believe we should be making clothing. Because everything that I did and all the experience that I've been doing and gaining since the age of 13, I've just been saying, okay, well, if the brass people are doing this, the brass artisans are melting down old sinks and padlocks and old machinery that cannot be used anymore into beautiful jewelry and bowls and adornment for your space, for your body. Why are we not taking this approach with clothing? And so I set out to kind of contribute to the narrative and introduce this perspective once again. I mean, we've had a big challenge in Kenya with the cotton industry, since the invention of polyester in the 70s. Our government at the time allowed for free market importation of polyester from countries like China. And it really destroyed our cotton industry. So, we lost a lot of craft and capacity at that time. We also, during the British colonization of Kenya, lost certain weaves like pokoma weaving, which is an indigenous weave that only comes from Kenya. So there's a lot of ways of life I think shaped my perspective on how we should be making things across sectors. I happen to pick the thing that I love the most to make. But then also there's problems that I think need to be addressed and rehabilitated and rethought, to find solutions for. And this exists in every community in the world, every country that makes fashion, which is most countries, if not all countries in the world, have some form of making clothing. So we all have our individual issues, but this I think is definitely something that even in India, you can see that there's a different kind of craft sector and different issues in fashion production. But I think that being here and feeling most emotionally connected to Kenya, this is my home, and my family has a long lineage here. I wanted to make the impact here because it's the world that makes sense to me, and I understand deeply.
That is such a beautiful story. If right from you said you're 13 then, so that's the impact nature has on humans, which is why we're all the same part. Is that at a very young age, if you can start to appreciate what we have been given, I think that's when people like you actually come up, who are the creators, who can come up with something that's as beautiful. There's one interesting thing you said about the cotton industry, and being a fashion outsider, but understanding the different aspects of textile problems because kind of a scientific upbringing is that cotton is a very controversial crop because of the usage of water, they say, and a lot of people say the color cotton we have in India doesn't require so much of, it's not so water dependent, which is why it's fine. So, what is your view on, let's say, for a consumer who is just wants beautiful cotton clothes because we have heard cotton is good for us? How would you say that we should look at cotton fabrics and what kind of cotton clothes should we buy?
That's a really good question because there's cotton and then there's cotton. And cotton is the most widely used fabric textile in the world. And it comes in so many different forms. So you have your denim, you have poplin, you have malmal and voile and Mariakani and Khadi. There's so many different kinds of cotton in the world. So I think the best way to start looking at cotton is to go to how the cotton is grown. we have so many different tiers of cotton farmers, weavers, spinners, dyers in this world. It takes up a very vast and significant proportion of the general textile landscape as it stands. Similarly, in LilaBare, we only use rain-fed cotton because if we're dependent on synthetic irrigation systems, then you're looking at, typically a very thirsty plant. Anywhere between 1,900 and 2,700 liters of water is required for a t-shirt or a pair of jeans. And so I think that if it can be watered by nature, that's a really big step in the right direction. The second thing I think people can do is, there's so much information that you can learn from a fabric label, the garment label that has the care instructions and the composition. You can look at the swing tag, the tag that is hanging off the garment where the price is written and all of that, and it will say sustainable cotton. Like we were saying before, sustainability is not really a term, or sustainable is not really a term that answers the question at all. But on the label itself, when you're shopping, look at the composition and see, where it's made. See whether it is certified organic, whether there's extra information and transparency about where it comes from on the label itself. I think all of these touch points are tools for communicating between brands and the customer, the end user of this product, or the first end user of this product. So that is a really big indication, I think. We also live in a digital world, so it's very easy to find information about, reliable and truly sustainable businesses in many different ways. So if you like a brand, you go into a concept store and you find this independent emerging designer, maybe you don't know exactly who they're from, and you can see their label on the garment, and go check out their website, go check out their Instagram, see. It doesn't take a lot to find information on clothing brands anymore, and everybody has access to this through the digital space. So I think it's time for customers and consumers of fashion in general to do a little bit more digging, because we know that it's bad to do it the other way, to do it the fast fashion way, and to shop. We know that the linear economy is, detrimental to our planet. There's stories about the secondhand market being such a problem in countries like Ghana and Kenya. So if we know that's bad and we're looking for ways to improve our carbon footprint in the fashion sector, it requires a little bit more of a mind shift, in that you want to buy something that lasts, something that's durable, something that's timeless, a little, less trend driven, and more something that you value and cherish in your wardrobe. And in doing so, a little bit of due diligence, which takes you anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute, I think is well worth it to explore what options there are available, because there are so many wonderful, cotton clothing pieces to buy in this world today. There's too much variety for us as consumers to be lazy about it. It doesn't require much effort at all anymore.
That's very useful for any customer. I think in this day and age, it since we have a lot of, like you said, information available, it's time that we also become a lot more conscious as consumers. And if I do just think about our ancestors, just our grandparents of generation also, they used to be quite conscious. They were aware of what they were wearing. They knew where this was coming from, maybe because the distance between them and the actual weavers were less. But yeah, we kind of got lazy in between, and now it's about time that we get back that kind of trait again. But all of this understanding that you've got, I know you have a good not just overall, but quite in-depth understanding of what this sector is, of what this industry is. So if I ask you, like, Ria was already inspired by nature, she understood, she appreciated, but when did that transform into something concrete? Was it during your studies that you decided, okay, this is the path I'm going to take with my brand, or when did that transformation happen?
Well, the first time I thought about creating fashion, I must have been 2 years old, and I was actually sketching people, or rather cartoons. I was sketching Disney characters or something, and I love animation to this day, and I've always been fascinated by the human form. Um, and so I took that, with me through my art practice, my fine art practice in school and at extra art class and clubs and things. I was, very interested in understanding the human form, the human figure, and different shapes and sizes that people come in, and how they adorn themselves. Because in all my artwork and my paintings, it was very much an exploration of different kinds of forms, but adorned in a particular way. So it made me sort of gravitate towards seeking out, finding the best way to go about that, and finding. I do think that, choosing to be a self-taught designer, um, this is a lifelong journey. It's a process, and I want it to be that way. So, you know, I can say that, the first time I felt like I really contributed to something was this moment, but usually I always feel that way after my next collection. That the last collection that I did, I'm like, okay, that is it. I've introduced more perspective and more kind of consideration and better exposed, more robust lens with which I see the world. But that is ever evolving. So I think that, even labeling as a fashion designer, um, it's a term that I find. I mean, it's a label, but I think, there's other ways to look at creating wearable art, or however that journey feels like. It's a very malleable thing to me, and I enjoy the process of discovering something new with each collection, with each creation, with each idea, every experience. Yeah, it's a very fluid and ever evolving journey for me.
Thank you for that. I think we can see that every time. The first time you look at LilaBare website, you kind of get an understanding, okay, this brand is it has a lot of depth in it. That's what I would say. And if we could talk about your spring summer collection for 2024, it looks like it really does look like masterpieces, and I know there's a lot of work that has gone into it. So if you could please tell us a bit about the collection.
Yeah, connection is definitely true to my kind of journey as a creator, and as a designer. This spring summer collection for me has really been a special journey, at a point in that journey, and coming out of my shell in a way that I've never done before. Um, I think the reason for, why I feel that way with the spring summer 2024 collection is that is the season that I really addressed my identity head on. I'm Indian in heritage, and I have a long history of and lineage of my ancestors, and that my family, who have grown up and lived in Kenya, and Tanzania as well, but East Africa in general. So, with this season, it was really an exploration of those two very distinct cultures and heritages coming together in a way that feels very authentic to me and my experience, what I value in my Indian heritage, the things that I come back to all the time, whether it's for nostalgia or whether it's for inspiration and beauty and art, um, or whether it's a technique, whether it's a style of dressing, and the same with Kenyan craft and heritage and the weaving. And I really wanted to contribute some kind of a different form of perspective of what it could mean to be Indian and Kenyan at the same time. um, so it was a very emotional process, I think, the creative process for me. I feel like addressing one's identity when there's so many external forces that can tell you, or outside the world will tell you what you are and try and label, try and label and put you in a box. And that has also been a big part of my journey as a designer. People sort of, or just as a human being, to be honest, people questioning my Kenyanness, people questioning my Indianness. And I really wanted to kind of take charge of that, and be at the helm of my own identity. And that's really what this collection is about. So there is a lot of work that has gone into this, because it is the fusing of both ancient craft techniques from India, particularly inspiration that I've taken from Gujarat, which is my heritage. I'm Gujarati, Indian, and then with Kenyan weaves and all the botanical dyeing that we've been doing with indigenous plants here. So the way that I thought to bring that about was leveraging the power of modern technology. And this is something that I really have enjoyed the process of adapting and evolving alongside technology as it's progressed exponentially in the last few years. So I do love technology. I think there is a place for green technology that can actually really make a positive impact in the world. And so I adapted, digital design in my process. And it really allowed me to bring the two worlds together in a way that felt safe and, I don't know, innate. It's a very weirdly intimate process, me and my computer, um, and it was great to have that experience to sort of introduce Mendi, for example, henna designs, typical Gujarati henna designs, and then think about, the crochet that I've been working on with a group of nuns in a church in Kenya, the Maasai beading and looking at metals like aluminium and brass that we use here, antique clay beads as well. There was a lot of possibility to kind of play around in the digital space, and that's really how we managed to bring the collection together, was using this technology and looking at the history and the heritage of both Indian and Kenyan cultures, and bringing it together in a seamless way that is still timeless and has a story and a kind of symbolism behind it as well.
What could be a more beautiful way to do this, to bring your both your heritages together? I have looked at your the pieces of this collection. They're really beautiful. And yes, you mentioned digital design. I think one piece I saw that you've created the design digitally. It's really beautiful. And the way that everything has come together in your mind and that has been finally executed, I think it's really, really beautiful. And I would like to wish you all the best with this collection. I know you're traveling and you're very busy at this time. So I just have all my best wishes with your brand, with everyone you work with. And just to understand the whole landscape a little more, if I could ask, what has been the brand perception, or in general, the perception of sustainable fashion in Kenya or in a larger African landscape?
Well, thank you for the kind words. That's really so lovely to hear. I think that the landscape in Kenya is right now for this particular niche of regenerative, circular, conscious, mindful fashion is a really wonderful space to be in. And I do enjoy sharing space with so many talented designers who we really consider our roots in different ways, and use these ancient practices, and evolve them for the modern era. So and this goes for Kenyan designers. There's Nigerian designers who come and make things here. There's Nigerian designers who make in Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Mali, just to name a few. And these places we've evolved our fashion practices from this ancient time and this era, from the dawn of our civilization, into something that is here for today, which is really special. I think that it's a very powerful space to be in, and I think on the other hand, so we've got on the one hand these brands that we are there are culture here that I find myself feeling very much a part of, in a sense of belonging, where regenerativeness and alternative materials and natural methods and heritage techniques are just part and parcel of our expression, our culture, and we're connected to our roots in that way. And then on the other hand, you've got the customers, right? So the customer landscape, I think, has evolved alongside the global landscape. And yeah, the African continent in general, they really, we ask the questions that are important. And I do think that speaks to the wider landscape, the global landscape of fashion. I find that we are addressing the issue more in a more mainstream way. I don't know if you saw, I believe it was on Sunday, I saw this, the latest Saturday Night Live, and they had a fast fashion parody video that I found so interesting. Brands like LilaBare, that we really do care about what we put into the clothes and who makes it and how. And I think that people are definitely getting that message and finding us across the world, which is, it's a really powerful and wonderful time, I would say.
I couldn't agree more, definitely. I didn't know about the Saturday Night Live, so thanks for sharing that. And I love how it is becoming. Very recently, I saw a big Indian business news channel. They had covered the topic of fast fashion, and they were talking about how it is every consumer should be aware of this. And I'm loving how this is becoming an everyday conversation. The main idea behind starting a magazine to talk about sustainability is that I have attended many conferences with 3,000 people discussing difficult topics. Yes, of course, that's needed. But at the end of the day, we can't be sustainable if all of us, like normal people, are not sustainable. And what you said is so lovely, because Africa has so much of like ancient, very rich culture, and how this is changing. I think it's people like you who are required to drive this change, to really spearhead this process. And I would love to share that today morning I woke up with a message from a childhood friend of mine who, if it's okay to say his name is Shaftoki. He's trained as a fashion designer. Eventually, he has been working in the industry. He sent me a message saying that, see, people are doing some beautiful things with sustainability. We should make it more creative and make repurposing the whole different aspects of sustainable fashion more creative, more attractive, rather than making it very bland and that everybody's like, again, another green brand. So I loved, my day started with that. And then with you saying all this, I absolutely love my day. Thanks for sharing so much so beautifully. I think another aspect of any complex topic, be it sustainability or anything related to the survival of human species, if it's not communicated in a good way, then there's no point. And the fact that you can tell your story that is so rich, has so much depth and kind of different lens to it, the fact that you're able to communicate it to a general audience, I am completely like sitting and listening like a listener, like a student, I would say. That I think helps a lot. I mean, yes, I know a lot of people say, I've heard very recently a lot of people say that, brands don't need a voice. I don't agree with it. I mean, it always helps if brands have such a strong
I
voice.
think it's very interesting that you say that, and I think this what your friend said is a big indicator as well that we haven't actually touched on, and that is the variety in aesthetic of sustainable fashion, right? See, when fossil fuels run out, there aren't going to be any plastic-based polyester or whatever clothes that are new clothes that are going to be made, right? We'll only be stuck with the, millions and billions of tons that we have right now, but there is no way that we can make any more than that. And, the fact that I think not only are people adjusting their perspective and shifting their narratives on what they want to buy and what they want to wear every day, but it's also that in that questioning and in the finite timeline that fast fashion does have in the world, um, there is more space for variety in aesthetic. At the end of the day, fashion, the purpose for us having a fashion industry and such a big fashion industry is that people do care about what they put on their back. If they can choose, they want to choose themselves. Everybody has a preference, whether it's based on how it makes you feel, whether it's based on how it makes you look, whatever it is that is your motivation. Everybody has a selective process of discernment between clothes. And what the great thing is about creating, having more space for um, different varieties of sustainability within fashion is that actually this is the future. So we do need and we do require those aesthetics that push the edge, that are not just sack dresses. As much of the sustainable fashion sector started, the aesthetic was very, like you say, bland. I think of it as a little crunchy granola. It's just there is a window of opportunity to really express something different, because we all dress differently, we all prefer different things, and there's different dress codes for different occasions in life, and because this is, we call it a niche now, the niche that I'm in, but it won't be for very long. So I think it's a very powerful and potent thing to have variety and aesthetic in this sector, because this is it. This is how we will make clothes going forward.
I love it. Thanks for saying that. As a consumer, I have a request to all fashion brands, to all sustainable brands, that we do have a lack of variety around us, just in normal life. Whenever we want to buy something, for example, whatever I'm wearing, it's khadi. The issue is it's very difficult to find these stores, and when you go there, the designs are kind of similar. I mean, like you said, you have dress codes for different occasions. I wouldn't like to wear the same design again and again and again. And I'm not saying that I'm against that whole thing of if you worn it once, you can't wear it again. But the fact that I'm going to shop something for a special occasion and I don't have varieties, but I still want to wear non-plastic. So this is a request to all brands to bring a little more variety. So thanks for saying that. Thanks for doing that for first of all. And yes, there's lots to learn. Like whenever I think I go to your brand website, whenever I have an interaction with you, there's always something new to learn from you, which I would love to continue doing, and I can't thank you enough for having this conversation with me today. It's a very, very busy time for you, but you still took out the time to have this long conversation. And very, very grateful to you, Ria.
Thank you for having me, and it's really great to discuss and be in a space where we can have this conversation from very different backgrounds and perspectives and different continents and all that. So, yeah, it was a real pleasure to chat with you, and thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot. The pleasure is mine. And for everyone watching, I would add the link to LilaBare's website in the comment section. So I would really encourage you to go and see their collections. It's everything you've heard from Ria today, you will see that reflected in her work. So there's a lot of other things also. You see how they work with local artisans, and they work with handlooms. It's a true sustainable brand, and you would be as amazed as I was when I saw it for the first time. I can assure you that you would feel great too. So kindly go to their website and also check out our magazine again. We would love to see more of LilaBare on our magazine in the upcoming editions, and there are other brands too from different parts of India as well as abroad. And we are trying to just communicate that it is possible. It's not as bad as it seems. It used to be really bad. The whole fashion industry is said to be very polluting, which it was. And but there are solutions. There are many people who are crafting those solutions. It's important that we highlight these people more. That's the whole idea behind the magazine as well as this podcast. So thanks so much everyone for watching today. Thank you, Ria. Any last words you have for us? We would love to hear from you.
Yes, I would actually, seeing as you mentioned the website, I'd like to extend a kind of token of gratitude to all the listeners. So if there's any listeners who are going to our website through by hearing this podcast, we can leave a code in the show notes or in the caption wherever we're posting this, so that you can get free shipping anywhere in the world. So I think it would be lovely to connect with people that way if they feel like they want a piece. So I think yeah, because we're talking about cross continents, it only makes sense.
That is really kind of you. Thank you so much. I know free shipping is actually really a gift. Come realizing the fact that how far it's going to travel. Thank you so much. I'm very, very grateful to you. I want to wish you all the best, and let's see LilaBare grow. Thank you.
Thanks, Savannah. Take care.